From CBS News Convention Headquarters in Kansas City, this is the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Charles Collingwood in our newsroom in New York.
Good evening. With the Republican presidential nomination within his reach tonight, President Ford cautioned his supporters not to let down until it is securely in hand. That it will be in hand no longer is seriously questioned. Ronald Reagan made his move here in Kemper Arena last night. He forced a test of strength, a showdown with the president, and Reagan lost. The issue was a proposed rule change to require the president to name a running mate in advance, but both candidates turned the issue into a preliminary roll call for nomination, and Mr. Ford won with 50 votes more than the 1,130 needed. The outlook was so bleak for Reagan today that Richard Schweiker, his selection as a running mate, outraged some conservatives, you remember, offered to step aside if it would help. Reagan said no. Mr. Ford's margin seems sure to grow by tonight's roll call. A Reagan supporter, Warren McPherson, ex-chairman of the Washington state delegation, said, "I would say the president may win by a couple of hundred votes." More on the Ford story from Bob Schieffer.
Happiness in the Ford camp is winning a key vote the way they won last night. The Ford people are supremely confident now and as serene as this indoor waterfall that graces the Ford headquarters hotel. Mr. Ford himself can hardly contain his own glee. As he toured his campaign workers' offices today, he kept saying over and over again, everything is just great.
It was a great night last night, and it came about because of all the hard work of people like yourself, not only here but all over the country. It's a big step toward the result that we're going to get tonight, and the more important result that we're going to get November 2nd. Thank you.
Mr. Ford was in the same euphoric mood when he called in Republican governors to talk strategy for the fall campaign. For the first time in this long campaign year, the Ford people feel the nomination is now firmly in hand, and now they want to win big, hoping to build momentum for the fall. So the president, his family, and his key cabinet officers were out campaigning right down to the wire today, concentrating on the big states like New York. Trailing in the vote count, Reagan was literally trailing the president around town today, arriving just 2 minutes after Mr. Ford arrived at a GOP victory lunch. They did not cross paths. While Reagan greeted officials in one room, the president greeted dignitaries across the hall. Aides called it, by any measuring stick, one of the happiest days of the Ford presidency. And the look on this face told the whole story. Bob Schieffer, CBS News, Kansas City.
Jesse Helms, the North Carolina senator who will second Reagan's nomination tonight, says a rabbit will have to be pulled out of a hat for Reagan to win. And in Helms' words, "I haven't seen any rabbit hutches around Reagan headquarters lately." Terry Drinkwater reports.
In a final attempt to wrest the nomination from the incumbent president, Ronald Reagan's chosen running mate, Richard Schweiker, had an idea he thought would help.
Early this morning, I requested a meeting with Governor Reagan in order that I could personally suggest to him that I withdraw from the race. In view of last night's vote, I felt in fairness, Governor Reagan's candidacy should be considered by the delegates tonight on its own.
I picked him 3 weeks ago. I said we'd go forward together. We've been campaigning as a ticket. I think it was the best choice. And it's a matter of principle. I declined.
The meeting between Reagan and Schweiker and other sessions with strategists came up with no new rabbits to pull out of the hat, as one top aide put it. Reagan carried on the schedule planned before the defeat of his 16C last night, going from delegation to delegation today. He kept on trying, and everywhere he was asked the question which presumed his own defeat. Would he be Mr. Ford's running mate?
Now, if the President of the United States would ask you to be the Vice President, the people, the delegates on the floor, all in command, would say, Governor Reagan, we want you as our Vice President. You mean no?
I do mean no. And the President knows that. Now, this is one of the things that disturbed me last night mightily. He has known that. He's known it for several days.
There was gloom everywhere in the Reagan camp, a feeling of resignation that it was all but over, even from Reagan's manager, the architect of his whole campaign, John Sears.
There's no doubt that the effect of losing a test vote, as we did last night, makes it a very uphill struggle for us to ever be nominated, and makes the odds on that longer.
We love running!
The ardent Reagan supporters, those who came from all over the country to provide the hoopla, to cheer their man, were still shouting and smiling tonight. But others, those who knew the hard delegate counts, were not. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, with the Reagan campaign.
Well, it may be academic now, but our continuing delegate count now shows Mr. Ford with 1,175 votes, 45 more than needed for nomination tonight. Reagan has 1,067, and 17 are still undetermined.
Mazola Margarine says, think before you eat. Think about all the goodness in Mazola Margarine. Think of Mazola's light, creamy taste. Think the goodness of Mazola Margarine's golden corn oil. And Mazola has no cholesterol. Think of it as part of a plan to restrict fats and cholesterol. Think about what you want in margarine. You'll find it in Mazola Margarine. Think about it.
Nature Valley granola is not just a cereal, it's more. I use the recipes on the box for cookies, breads. Great, too, as a snack. No preservatives, crunchy, wholesome treat in taste no other natural cereals have. Cinnamon and raisins, honey and oats, fruit and nut, and now coconut and honey.
From Nature and Nature Valley.
It's more than a cereal.
A Ford-Reagan unity meeting is in the works, probably after tonight's nomination. Then the attention will shift to the selection of a running mate. More on this from Phil Jones.
On the top floor of the Ford headquarters hotel, there was a great deal of thinking and talking about the vice presidential decision today, but those meeting with the president, including some on the VP list, found no encouraging hints.
The president was listening, and he was going around the table, letting everyone express their views, asking questions that would elicit views, but keeping pretty close counsel.
This presidential suite has been off limits for the press since Mr. Ford arrived. From here, he has been looking over the finalist. He missed Senator Baker's keynote address, but watched a videotape replay later. And tonight, Baker remains high on everybody's speculative list. It has been learned that Baker spent several hours with Mr. Ford's chief lawyer last week. One of the matters discussed was whether a past alcohol problem of his wife could be a political liability. Senator Baker discussed the matter openly today, claiming that Mrs. Baker's drinking problem was cleared up in 1971.
It's no guarded secret. It's something that's been generally known, and as a matter of fact, I suspect it was pretty generally known to the president, since we've been friends for many years.
William Ruckelshaus, who gained prominence when he quit the Justice Department during the Nixon Saturday Night Watergate massacre, is believed to be a finalist. Others considered long shots include Elliot Richardson, who also quit Nixon over Watergate, John Connally, who seems to have faded because of past connections with Nixon, and William Scranton, United Nations ambassador. There are two who continue to say they are not interested, but Vice President Rockefeller and Ronald Reagan have not been written out. Mr. Ford may decide that for party unity, he needs to at least offer the second spot to Reagan. There are no plans for Mr. Ford to hold interviews with any of the vice presidential finalists. He is expected to make his selection after talking with Ronald Reagan late tonight or tomorrow morning. And then he's expected to appear at this press podium about noon tomorrow to make his announcement. Phil Jones, CBS News at the Ford headquarters.
With President Ford's nomination virtually assured now, Secretary of State Kissinger is coming out of his political exile. He's preparing to show up in Kansas City. Marvin Kalb reports from the State Department.
Kissinger emerged today from his brief seclusion now that the president's nomination seems virtually assured. He conferred at length with Canada's Minister for External Affairs, Alan McEachen. Later, at a news conference, the secretary lightly brushed aside all questions relating to that hardline addition to the Republican platform, seen by many as implied criticism of Kissinger and his policy.
I don't take this as criticism of my foreign policy initiative. The platform is something on which the president has to run, and anything that he's satisfied with, I'm glad to accept.
Do you feel squelched or repudiated in any way, Mr. Secretary?
Not at all.
He was very cheerful and bouncy today, I found. you plan to go to Kansas City, Mr. Secretary?
I plan to go there tomorrow.
What sort of a reception do you expect?
Well, I know there are many people who are eagerly awaiting me.
Kissinger reveals more with a quip and a smile than he sometimes intends. It's clear the secretary opposed that hardline plank, but ultimately accepted it. First, because he knew the president wanted to finesse another political squabble with Reagan supporters. And second, because Kissinger doesn't feel the revised platform will really affect his conduct of foreign policy in the waning months of his power. Marvin Kalb, CBS News, the State Department.
Democratic nominee Jimmy Carter watched the Republican infighting from afar at his home in Plains, Georgia, where he talked today about the coming campaign.
My guess is that President Ford will be the nominee. He will be a formidable opponent. And the present wide advantage that I have in the public opinion polls is inevitably going to decrease. I think the Republicans will come out of the convention with unity and with alleviation of the disharmonies that have been part of the tough campaign conducted by Governor Reagan against President Ford.
Sometimes Bank AmeriCard can make all the difference.
You stayed up all night. Wow, what a blast. Now your head and your stomach need relief. Back. How good they'll go. Flop, fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Flop, fizz, oh, what a relief it is.
Those bursting Alka-Seltzer bubbles relieve your upset stomach and aching head fast. For acid indigestion, use Alka-Seltzer Gold.
Oh, what a relief.
North Korean soldiers armed with axes and sharp metal poles today killed 2 U.S. Army officers in a dispute over a tree pruning operation at the Panmunjom Truce Village. A U.S. serviceman snapped a photograph of the start of the incident, the tree trimmers still on their ladders. UN and U.S. officials called the attack unprovoked, while North Korea said it was the Americans who started the fighting. Secretary of State Kissinger reacted with a pointed indictment of the North Korean regime.
We consider the killing of the 2 American officers a wanton act of murder, which we will hold the North Korean authorities responsible for all consequences.
In Kansas City, President Ford condemned the slayings as vicious and unprovoked. Philippine authorities say at least 5,000 persons are dead or missing after the earthquake and tidal wave that struck southern Mindanao Island 2 days ago. Barry Kalb reports from one of the hardest hit areas.
Cotabato City at the southern end of Mindanao Island sustained some of the greatest damage. The epicenter of the quake struck at sea to the south of here minutes after midnight, but the shaking was severe enough to cause damage like this. A series of tidal waves, which may have caused more deaths than the quake itself, quickly followed. In Cotabato, bodies are still being dug from the wreckage, and the last of them probably won't be retrieved for days. This bridge gave way, and others show dangerous cracks. For all this destruction, however, the majority of Cotabato's buildings seem to have escaped major damage, and this city was not hit hard by the tidal waves, which are being blamed for many hundreds of deaths elsewhere along the coast. More than a dozen aftershocks have been reported, and in some parts of the Philippines, authorities are talking of instructing people in earthquake precautions. Barry Kalb, CBS News in Cotabato City.
South African police today fired on rioting blacks in townships around Port Elizabeth, killing at least 8 and wounding 20. The new deaths brought to 227, the death toll in black rioting in South Africa since June. The United Nations has been trying for 10 years to end South African control over the neighboring diamond-rich former German colony of Southwest Africa, now called Namibia. The Pretoria government has long equivocated, but today a multiracial committee backed by South Africa proposed that Namibia achieve its independence on December 31st, 1978 and be ruled by an interim multiracial government.
Julie Gillespie goes to a school in a school district that hasn't a penny to spare these days. What school district does? They wanted to serve Julie and her classmates hot lunches. But how? Without an expensive kitchen and staff. The answer came from Morton's, the frozen food people of ITT, who developed compact mini kitchens for schools and good, nourishing hot lunches for the children. With the ITT Morton School Lunch Program, there are different lunches for every day of the month, and the cost is well within the school budget. All of which leaves Julie Gillespie and her school with a nice, warm feeling inside.
A barge carrying 1,000 tons of sulfuric acid and the highly toxic chemical oleum capsized today in Chesapeake Bay. The Coast Guard says it doesn't know how much leakage there's been yet, but dead fish are appearing in the area. Virginia police began evacuating about 3,000 nearby residents. Officials feared two dangers: the toxic fumes and the chance of an explosion. The barge was being towed to Allied Chemical Company in Hopewell, Virginia. Allied has already been indicted for polluting the nearby James River. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is warning hospitals with radiation units to guard against giving patients too much radiation. The action stems from a case at the Riverside Methodist Hospital in Columbus, Ohio, where almost 400 patients in a 2-year period got radiation overdoses. The Nuclear Commission said the overdoses occurred after a radiation therapist adjusted his equipment incorrectly. Even in so-called normal times, Detroit has one of the highest crime rates in the country. Now, a weekend attack by hundreds of youths has prompted authorities to focus on a particular segment of the city's criminal population. Don Webster reports.
Detroit has had black gangs for years, but until recently, they spent most of their time fighting each other. Now they have banded together and are staging mass attacks. They stopped a rock concert at downtown Cobo Hall last weekend. There were beatings and robberies, 1 woman raped, 47 youths arrested. Alarmed city officials recalled earlier than scheduled 450 policemen who had been laid off for economy reasons. They will be concentrated in the downtown areas. The city has imposed a 10 p.m. curfew for all youths 17 and under unless accompanied by an adult. That's awkward for popular nighttime events. Last night, the Detroit Tigers had their largest nighttime attendance in 6 years. This quiet-looking street is the dividing line between the city's 2 largest gangs, the Black Killers and the Errol Flynns. Youths blame the gang violence on unemployment.
They're getting misled by, older adults, like, these people that be around, ain't got no job, walking around, committing a lot of crime. That's where they're getting it from.
Officials say at present a juvenile is arrested at 10 in the morning, is released at 3 in the afternoon, and comes back a hero to the other gang members.
We're convinced that one of the things you have to do is take away that hero incentive. Pick that kid up, and for 6 years he ought not show up. 6 months he ought not show up, depending on the crime.
In downtown, the flight to the suburbs has been going on for decades. Detroit is now about 60% black. Many citizens feel the usual complaints, such as unemployment, are no excuse for robberies, riot, and rape. One merchant has had his share of problems. On Saturday, his restaurant was robbed. On Sunday, his shoe store was ransacked, and he says $30,000 of goods were taken.
It's the first time we've ever really had any major violence like this. I think it's mostly the youth gangs and the kids, and
unfortunately, it's something they're going to have to get under control, but we're staying.
If idleness has caused crime here, the situation may get even worse. Because of an economic crisis, the present plan is for Detroit schools to eliminate all varsity athletics starting this fall. Don Webster, CBS News, Detroit.
Renee Richards, the female tennis player who used to be a male, said today she will appeal the U.S. Tennis Association ruling that she has to take a chromosome test to identify her sexual makeup before playing in the U.S. Open. More on the story from David Culhane.
Dr. Renee Richards, a 41-year-old ophthalmologist, surgeon, and expert on cross-eyed children. She also happens to be a tennis player of some distinction. In fact, last month she won a tournament at La Jolla, California. At that point, it became known that she is a transsexual. 2 years ago, she was Dr. Richard Raskin and was ranked nationally among the top 20 male tennis players over age 35. The girl who lost at La Jolla wasn't too happy about her opponent.
I was kind of psyched. You know, I had never played a person like this, and we weren't sure if the rumors were true. And so my mind really wasn't that much on tennis. I was thinking, is she really a man, or, you know, what kind of person am I playing?
And that's the problem. The members of the Women's Tennis Association are strenuously opposed to playing Renee Richards on the grounds that at 6'2" and 147 pounds, she has an unfair advantage in size and strength.
My size may even be a disadvantage because I'm not as mobile as Rosie Casals or Billie Jean King. If you say that my size is an advantage, then it is an advantage. But that's what sports competitions are made of. Henry Aaron's wrist snap is his advantage, and you can't take that away from him. I have an advantage because I'm well coordinated.
Now Dr. Richards says she is physically and legally a woman, and she wants to play in the U.S. Open at Forest Hills next month. The indications are that if she is accepted as a qualified player, she will have to take the chromosome test used in the Olympics to determine sex. She says she will not take the test, that it is not definitive, that sex must be determined by a variety of means. Next week, Renee Richards will take part in another tournament in New Jersey, without the chromosome test. The question is, what women players will be there to oppose her? David Culhane, CBS News, New York.
The government said today that bigger payrolls and Social Security payments last month triggered the sharpest rise in total personal income in almost a year. The increase, a full percentage point, puts personal income growth in the last year at about 10.5%, compared with an inflation rate of about 6%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average pulled back by more than 4.25 points today. Volume on the New York Stock Exchange was 17,150,000 shares. The average price per share dropped 8 cents on the New York Exchange, 2 cents on the American.
An ingrown toenail, skin so tender the slightest touch can cause pain. For fast temporary relief, use Outgrow. Outgrow temporarily relieves pain, toughens tender skin. Just a few drops temporarily relieves pain, inflammation, swelling fast, without affecting the shape, growth, or position of nail. Then daily use toughens tender skin. Your toe feels so much better. Outgrow temporarily relieves pain, toughens tender skin.
At Charlotte, Lime Rock, Bridgehampton, Pocono, and Nelson Ledges, this is the shape that won. Triumph TR7. To celebrate, we're offering a special Victory Edition TR7 with free spoker wheels, free vinyl roof, and free racing stripes. The Victory Edition Triumph TR7. The shape of things that win.
Protest demonstrations at this Republican gathering have been in marked contrast to the violent confrontations at the conventions 4 and 8 years ago. This convention has its share of demonstrators, the most noticeable being the Yippies. About 75 of them have camped out in a park within shouting distance of President Ford's headquarters. But for the most part, what protests there have been here have been low-key. And there's a group of private citizens trying to keep it that way, as Ike Pappas reports.
Kansas City is attempting to avoid the mistakes of past convention cities in handling demonstrations. A non-profit organization called Watch Incorporated has been set up to keep an eye on protesters, police, and the media to determine if rights have been violated and who's responsible.
Our feeling was that there would be at least a number of non-delegate participants related to the convention. Our concern was that they have the right to be here and to express their opinions, but the community has a right to go on about its business peacefully, and the delegates have a right to go about their lawful duties peacefully.
Watch is made up of some 460 unpaid volunteers who write down what they see and file reports with a central office. From the reports come a daily newsletter, which is distributed to all parties concerned. The idea is that if everyone knows what's going on, things will remain under control. Some of the observers are housewives, others bankers and professors. They believe they've been a deterrent to disorder.
I think the job is working, and I think it's doing what I thought it was supposed to do to start with. It's creating an era here that everybody gets together and everybody's enjoying this instead of beating each other up.
I'm glad that they're here because they are doing a good job. I do think at times they write too many things down.
Police agree Watch has been worth it. The cost of the project, $10,000, most of it put up by the United Methodist Church. The founders of Watch Incorporated hope that the Republican convention will prove the value of their organization and that it will go on to become a permanent program in this city as one way, they say, of guaranteeing the rights of everyone. Ike Pappas, CBS News, Kansas City.
CBS News coverage of the Republican National Convention will begin this evening at 7:30, 6:30 Central Time. And that's the way it is, Wednesday, August 18th, 1976. This is Motor Crime Guide, CBS News Convention Headquarters in Kansas City. Good night.
But today, there'll be a change in weather. We're going to have rain and thunderstorms.
If you sometimes have a hard time staying awake during the day, maybe you had a hard time getting to sleep the night before. If you occasionally have trouble falling asleep, try Nitol. Nitol can help make you drowsy so you can get to sleep. And if you sleep at night, there's a good chance you'll stay awake during the day. For occasional sleeplessness, remember, Nitol.
Mazola Margarine says think before you eat. Think about all the goodness in Mazola Margarine. Think of Mazola's light, creamy taste. Think the goodness of Mazola Margarine's golden corn oil. And Mazola has no cholesterol. Think of it as part of a plan to restrict fats and cholesterol. Think about what you want in margarine. You'll find it in Mazola Margarine. Think about it.
From CBS News Convention Headquarters in Kansas City, this has been the CBS Evening News with Walter Cronkite and Charles Collingwood in our newsroom in New York. For the latest news early, watch the CBS Morning News with Hughes Rudd and Bruce Morton. See the world's top golfers in action when they demonstrate a fine way to treat a fairway in the Sammy Davis Jr. Greater Hartford Open, the final round Saturday and Sunday on CBS.
Stay tuned for Eyewitness News next on Channel 5 WTVF Nashville.
For a little bit of country and a lot of uptown, come to the Country Godfather, 2821 Lebanon Road. With your choice of delicious food from our menu, you can dine in elegance. Enjoy some of the best entertainment to be found anywhere, presented by some of the finest contemporary and country music artists. For delightful dining, dancing, or just relaxing,